When a young boy in Hitler's army discovers that his mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their home, he begins to learn that there may be more than the government-approved truth that he has been told in this heartwarming tale of Jojo Rabbit. Hi, I'm Mark, your host.
And I'm Anthony, your other host.
And this is Buddy Movies, the place where buddies talk about movies.
All right, I'm just going to dive right in here because...
Dive right in?
Yeah, we are recording this just so there's a little bit of a timestamp here, August 19, 2021. And there's some big events happening in the world. I'm just going to just hand it right off to you.
Hand it right off to me. I don't know if you actually want to hand it right off to me, man.
I'm just going to hand it right off.
I'm not happy right now.
I'm not happy either. I feel like you can better put into words what exactly is happening right now better than I can. I have some adjectives.
In the grand scheme of things, there are definitely some adjectives. There's definitely colorful language. This is probably an episode where parental advisory, because the fact is I'm just pissed off with the way our government has handled this Afghanistan situation, this leaving, this abandonment, this
ditching,
this, I mean, I don't know. I am so torn because the reality is America is just screwed no matter what we do every single time. It's either damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, either we have to be the world's police or we do nothing and a lot of innocent people get killed. And I know there's plenty of people are going to say, like, oh, innocent people get killed and we get involved too. It's like, yeah, they do, but there's a lot of assholes who get killed when we do it too.
Yeah.
And I am torn on the Christian ethic of it all too, because there is a big part of Christianity that has been non-interference for so long that, and we also, I mean, I'm talking like early for centuries, like non-aggression, non-interference, pacifism being the big thing. And then there's been this weird rise in the Christian right since like the 80s where, evangelicals have been very pushing towards, like almost warmongering at times. They just back up anything that we do, like, oh, support the president no matter what. And that's foolish too. But so I am very torn on where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do. But I have trouble with the idea that we're literally leaving people to their fate of being taken over by a known evil. And the thing that gets me the most pissed off is the fact that we're literally the news coverage. The news is literally, CNN is literally in there covering this story. And they're saying, well, the literal quote, the woman actually said this. This isn't a Babylon Bee thing. This isn't an Onion article. This is a literal, she said, well, they're chanting death to America, but other than that, they seem pretty nice. What? Like, and don't even think I haven't noticed that all the newscasters over there are now, completely wrapped up and covered up because otherwise they're going to get hurt. They're going to get killed. Like, we don't, like, there's just so much of this thing where I guess what it really, really, really all boils down to is the fact that I do believe that there is evil in this world. And I do believe that some cultures are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I mean, that is a judgment on other cultures. But the reality is we judge our own culture the same way. We look back at things that we did in the past as Christians, as white people, as Europeans, and we go, wow, that was terrible stuff to do. But for some reason, we're not supposed to judge people doing those same terrible things now because we did them back then. That makes no sense at all. No, what they're doing is wrong. They're taking over the country. They're killing people. They're raping people. They're brutalizing people. They're decapitating people. Sure, there's camera of, oh, look, they let these girls go back to school today.
Yeah.
Because the Taliban finally learned about PR. That's what happened. They learned about PR. And if you can win it in the media, that's all that matters. You don't have to actually win the fight in the actual battlefield anymore. They learned that you have to win it in the public's mind. And if they can convince enough people that what they're doing is just legit, then they'll be legit too. And it's just mind-boggling that we have a president who is just so flaccid that he's not able to do more than a 20-minute press conference without taking any questions.
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget blaming everybody except for himself for what actually has happened. Blaming the Afghan military and literally everybody else except for himself. Which I know was a big...
They told him it would fall. They told him by the end of the year the Afghan government would fall if we pulled out like this. And he didn't listen. I think he was shocked that it was like, it was a year? It happened before the end of the year? I thought we had more time. More time to what? Watch them die?
Yeah. When it came down to it, he underestimated the Taliban. He completely underestimated them. Which I don't know how you can possibly do, but somehow he figured out a way to underestimate the Taliban.
Well, probably because, Obama was arming them and helping them out during his entire presidency. So why are we supposed to act as if he wasn't part of that?
Yeah, I
remember when Americans left a base, they blew it the up. I remember when we leave a place, we didn't leave our equipment behind. Now, the Taliban is armed with our equipment. That's the same thing that happened under Obama. That's the same thing that's happening right now. Happened twice now that we abandon our equipment. Why? No one knows why. We pull our stuff out or we destroy it so that people can't get our advanced weaponry. And it's advanced.
And now they're in the hands of terrorists. One of the worst terrorist groups, Islamic groups that are in the world, and they're in their hands now. And there's nothing we can really do about it at this point. We pieced out. We said goodbye and said good luck to all those who are left behind. The thousands of people, men, women, and children who are left there stranded. Said goodbye to them, and now the Taliban get to do whatever the hell they want.
They're acting like, oh no, it's really not that bad. Then why were the regular Afghani citizens literally jumping onto the outside of the American jets as they flew away?
I saw literal footage of people falling off planes that were hundreds of feet up in the air. Planes that were taking off. People falling from the planes because they were clinging onto planes as they were taking off. It was disturbing. Isn't even a powerful enough word for what the footage that I've seen happening right now.
It's world shaking. It's literally like you just end up numb because you can't do anything about it, and it's such a grand problem.
Yeah, people flooding the airports, running alongside the U.S. Air Force plane, trying to jump on, try to keep it from taking off because they know if they stay behind, they're gonna get shot. Or
I literally can't imagine what my friends who actually served are feeling right now. My brother-in-law was over there fighting for years, helping to free those people, working side by side with those people to teach them how to do things. And now we've literally just it's literally like it's Vietnam all over again. And that's not just a talking point. It's literally like there's the footage matches. Like there are helicopters lifting off in Saigon. There's helicopters lifting out of here, leaving the embassy.
That was something I couldn't even get over with what Biden has said. Biden said, "This is nothing like Saigon. This will be nothing like Saigon. It is. There's no comparison here. There's no comparison. Mm-hmm. This will be nothing like what happened in Saigon. You trust me on this. It's nothing like it, and it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing.
It's just like." I honestly think the real problem is, and I've said this for years, is that we don't war properly anymore. We're in this 21st century mode of war where instead of taking over the territory that you win, you're supposed to give it back and try and let the people, become properly civilized, civilized into
Yeah.
what we think is civilized. And I think there's a severe misunderstanding of Muslims and what, at least this type of Muslim, and what their actual goals are. I mean, how do you fight something or someone who thinks that they go to heaven for killing
Yeah.
and doing suicide bombs? How do you fight that?
Yeah.
I don't think we're in the proper mindset to properly handle this type of thing, because they're fighting a different war than the one we fought. They're fighting different battles than the one we're fighting. So we can be gun to gun with them, but they're doing something different than we're doing. It's not just in tactics; it's in like how they believe and why they're doing it, and it
it's their
just changes
mindset.
everything. So it's literally, oh my gosh, I've read so much stuff about war and World War II and this type of stuff, and that it just like it boggles my mind that we just don't understand. Like, I feel like literally since World War II, the world hasn't fought properly because of how terrible everything got in World War II, that we don't want to rock the boat too much, so that, yeah, we've been in a constant state of war since then. Really, the world has been, even though America hasn't felt it. But we're also like in this weird point of like not wanting to rock the boat, being on eggshells, but also like constantly destroying things, constantly fighting. So it's like this weird, but it's not real fighting, because real fighting, it's kind of like in this leadership book I read this week, actually. Real conflict has a resolution. So if you have, it's good to have conflict. It's good to argue about something, but at the end you have a resolution and it's done and you move forward with it. We haven't had any type of wars with resolutions where there's a clear victor since World War II. Because we haven't fought that way. We've fought to try and get them back, get the people in that country to some form of mini Americanism, or just some form of their own version of democracy, or their own version of a republic, or their own version of whatever. We want to set it up so that they rule themselves, which is an admirable goal, but I think we're leaving them way too early so that they just end up back in worse places than they are. And don't even get me started on the amount of dictators we've set up and dethroned and equipped and taken down. Like the fact that Osama bin Laden was CIA trained is just another thing that like can go on forever. And it's just not a conspiracy theory. It's literally, this is just one mistake after another. We're training him to do this fighting and take care of the stuff we want taken care of over there. And when it doesn't work out, then we take him out and train, somebody else like Saddam Hussein to take him out. And then when Saddam Hussein goes nuts, then we go in there and take him out.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole thing of like, what? It's just like, there's this weird thing where we try and have peace without military interaction, when the reality is the only true way to get peace that I feel, this is my opinion, and people can discuss this with me because I am open to discussion about it, is the fact that I feel the real way to have peace is to be the one who's so big and badass that no one wants to mess with you. That's the way I feel you end up with peace in a country. I don't think we should be going around bullying a bunch of people, but I do think that, hey, if we had, and we got to that point, we are to that point essentially, but we keep going off and doing these other conflicts. So, and this is where like I said earlier, where we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, is because we didn't get involved in Rwanda and the whole world was like, why the hell didn't you get involved here? And then we did get involved in Iraq and Afghanistan and other things. And people are like, why are you involved there?
Right.
And some people simplify it by saying, oh, it's just all about the oil. Except if that were true, we've got so many reserves elsewhere. Like, the amount of oil in the Middle East isn't worth fighting for anymore at this point. It's just not. So I don't think it's about the. I personally don't. I don't want it to be about the oil, and I don't think it should be about the oil, and I don't think it's that. I think that's just a too simplification, too big of a simplification of all the conflicts that have gone on there forever. The reality is, we have an ally there, Israel, who gets accused of all sorts of things, just like we do, and yet they are so good to their people and have brought so much prosperity to that region that it's just absolutely nuts. Half the accusations made against them are just basically the have-nots being angry at the haves when the haves are going, here, come have some with us. It's just like a crazy, like they're literally sitting in hostile territory where everyone around them wants them dead. And they have the capability of literally just taking over all those countries around them. They literally do. Israel is that powerful that if they wanted to, they could just take down all the countries around them, and then they could have all the land. But you know what? They don't do that. You want to know why? Because they show restraint. Because that's what good people do with power. And that's what we mostly do in the U.S. There are times when obviously we mess up, and that's because it's just so big and so complex, and when to get involved and when not to get involved is just, it's too hard for any one person to say, oh, this was the right move. These guys sit down with big groups of people and look at all the information and have to make these decisions. And the crazy thing is, most of the presidents end up making very similar decisions, regardless of their party, regardless of their core beliefs. So it to me, it shows that it's something beyond as simple as we like to make the talking points.
Mm-hmm.
I can go on about this for hours.
Yeah. It's just very frustrating, distressing, heartbreaking, and disturbing all at once. Just so many emotions wrapped up in this. And just flat out just disappointing too. Like, it's sometimes it's hard to think about, like, how did we arrive at this point? How did we actually get ourselves to this point? But yeah. Well, there's our opening intro, folks. I just wanted to go out of it because, I think it's also just good to stay up to date on, current events, out there. And obviously this is the biggest one right now. It's happened very recently. And, that's all I have to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that. I'm ready to tear that movie a new one.
Yeah.
That'll be next week, though.
That'll be next week. This week we are doing Jojo Rabbit. New, I say new. Came out November 8, 2019. Written and directed by Taika Waititi, who previous film we did.
Actually, how you pronounce it? Are we pronouncing it right that way?
Taika Waititi. I may have said Tiki. Taika Waititi. That's how I've heard it pronounced.
Okay, that's fine.
How do you pronounce it?
No, I really don't know.
Okay,
I read it.
I'm pretty sure it's. I'm pretty sure it's
more
Taika,
read like, oh, that's that guy, and
I'm pretty sure it's Taika Waititi. This was based on the book Caging Skies by Christine Lunens. It was nominated for 6 Oscars, actually, and it won 1 for best adapted screenplay from Waititi. It was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Performance by Actress in a Supporting Role for Scarlett Johansson, as well as costume and production design and film editing. So this was a pretty big movie back in 2019.
I was surprised when I saw Scarlett Johansson in this movie. I don't know why, but I just didn't realize. I think I forgot that she was in it or something.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Because the whole cast is just, that's a great cast, actually. They got some good people in this movie.
It is.
I love the fact that we have, they're obviously going for a more comedic bent just from the casting of it, because you have Sam Rockwell and Rebel Wilson in it. Stephen Merchant is also like...
I totally forgot Stephen Merchant was in it too. I love him.
Yeah, he's just so many, like... he's just he's that guy who shows up in so many things that you're like, oh yeah,
it's
him. I don't know his
guy.
name, but
Yes,
it's that guy.
That guy.
He has the same look in every single movie, you know?
Yeah, and he was heavily involved in The Office as well. I believe he wrote and directed several episodes. I don't think he never starred in it, but he was definitely behind some of the writing of some of those episodes as well.
Shoot, I was supposed to have a special snack tonight. I was going to have black olives and mayonnaise.
Oh,
as a tribute to The Office, just during while we're eating, while we're talking, and my wife was like, "Why are you gonna make that?" And I had to explain the whole Michael Scott with his mayonnaise and olives.
Mm-hmm.
we bought 6 cans of olives, like literally a little mini case of olives, because we're starting to do a lot of tacos again. So we like black olives on our tacos, but. I just thought it was hilarious that we had these 6 cans. I was like, oh, I know what I'm going to do tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Distracted. Anyways, back to the movie.
Yeah. And it grossed $90.3 million worldwide on a $14 million budget. So it did well at the box office too. And nice. So I'll let you, this is you are pro on this movie. So I'll let you go ahead.
I'm very pro on this movie. This movie, pushes the edge of what is appropriate to do in a movie.
Very, very much so. Yes.
Because they take Nazis, like literal, actual Nazis, and they just kind of laugh at them. And they basically put their ideology on display and things that were actually kind of taught and said, and they make a joke out of it, and they're mocking it. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the ultimate way to deal with such terrible, terrible ideas. And so I think it's hard for a lot of people because we're used to, like, Steven Spielberg's take on Nazis and having to treat this subject with reverence. But he was dealing with the actual Holocaust part of it. He wasn't, this is dealing with a different side of it. This is dealing with the fact that these people were indoctrinating children, and that's how this whole thing started, was with the Hitler Youth, and them growing up and becoming indoctrinated into this ideology, and then voting and making decisions for society, and that's how they ended up with this whole Hitler thing happening. We need to me, it points out the fact that not only does it point out the absurdity of the situation, but it also shows how such a likable, enjoyable little kid who just wants to have fun, just wants to be a kid, can be twisted and turned into something so evil. Literally evil. The kid is innocent. He's sweet. He wants good things. He doesn't want to do bad things, but he's being twisted because of the way he's being taught, the way things are being demonstrated into being a Nazi, a literal, actual Nazi, to the point where he's hiding his mom is actually helping the resistance. Mm-hmm. His mom is hiding Jews, and she can't say anything to him. And this is actually really deep in this movie, is the fact that she doesn't really try and change his ideology, because she knows if she did, then it puts him in more danger, because now he has to lie. Right. Now he hide when he goes out into the public. Whereas this way, he just gets to be Jojo, doing all sorts of silly beliefs and having these terrible ideology, even though his mom's fighting against it. So she doesn't directly try and change his ideology, because she knows if she did, it puts too much of a burden on the child. So she doesn't try and burden the child with that, but she does fight against it. And he does end up coming to be a better person, because he gets exposed to the thing that he hates and he's so fearful of, and the outlandish ideas that he has of what Jews
what a Jew is,
what a Jew is, and they mock it. They just, the girl in the movie is mocking it in front of him, and belittling him because of his views, and he doesn't quite get it at first, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all like you said, through the whole aspect of childhood innocence, that he's a kid. He doesn't know. He just, I think, I mean, even his mom, Scarlett Johansson, in the movie says, or not, no, it's his friend, his Jewish friend Elsa, who he befriends, the Jew that she's hiding, that he just wants to be, in a club. He's just excited about being in a club, and he doesn't really know what it actually stands for. He just knows it's a new, exciting club, and it's the cool thing to be in. It's a popular thing to be in, and he's all in for it. But he doesn't actually know, because he's a kid. He doesn't actually know what is actually happening behind the scenes of this Nazi party.
No idea.
Yeah.
So, I guess, I don't know. I'm not really putting up that much defense. I mean, I've been reading another book lately it's called Ordinary Men, and it's about the police battalions that were sent throughout Poland and Russia and stuff to kill the Jews. And that's pretty much the only thing they were there for, and how it wasn't the army, it wasn't the Nazi army, it wasn't the SS soldiers going out and doing this. They literally took the police forces from those countries or from their country and told them to go do this, and they ended up doing it. They were, so it's like, it's about these ordinary, normal guys who were just lowly policemen, not military police. They didn't have military training. They were just normal dudes, and they committed these crazy atrocities. Because that's what people don't, like, people think as if this whole Hitler thing happened and it was just like 10 years of him just wiping people out. And that's not entirely true. I mean, there was a lot of years of fighting. Like, the part that we actually classify as the war starts when he invades Poland, I think, in 39.
Yes, it was Poland.
And so it goes from like 39 to 45, but they were building up their army before that.
Yeah.
They were breaking treaties before that. They were going into, like we talked with The Sound of Music, going into Austria before that,
Right.
So they were taking over things and having offensives, and the killing part literally happens, I think, starting in about 1942.
Yeah,
and
it
only
actually
lasted
happened
for 11 months. It was a very short period of time where they went on these mass tirades of killing all the Jews and everyone who got in their way. Because this is what people don't realize, is it wasn't just, I mean, we talk about the 6 million Jews,
right?
But we kind of gloss over the fact that there was about 7 million other people who they wiped out as well. Anyone who was, homosexual or a
Disabled.
gypsy or disabled, handicapped, that type of stuff. Old, too old and frail. Like, you're too old to actually make this trek. We kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of these guys who wanted to feign innocence and say, we didn't know what was going on. We were just following orders. But this book, Ordinary Men, just goes through and shows how they're lying to themselves. They're trying to cover their own butt because they know the atrocities they committed, because how hard they had to fight to, like the people, these guys just loaded the train and transported the people, except for the fact that they were Jews trying to escape, and there were thousands who didn't make it. There were 450 trains that traveled from Europe to Poland to these concentration camps.
Yeah.
And they, like, there's no way these guys didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the scary thing is, they were you and me. They were normal people. We want to act as if there was some special evil that was bound up in their hearts. But the reality is, they were just men put under pressure, and they cracked. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's something it's nice that it's good that you brought that up, because sometimes even I, I'm a World War II enthusiast. I love studying and researching, and I love watching movies and documentaries that deal with this, because it was such a huge, huge war. and affected so many countries and so many people that it's. I always just say, oh yeah, it was the Germans who did this, but it was a lot of people, like ordinary people, and that's not been something I've really have realized a whole lot of that.
And and to bring it into modern times, this is why I really hate the demonization of any group. Like I remember back last year, actually, I think in June, I had a fight with a friend because I was saying, just because someone doesn't want to wear a mask doesn't mean they're evil. Like they may be a number of different reasons. How about we all just like step back and not judge people,
Yeah.
And he got really mad that I was defending this small group of people who might have a legitimate reason for not wearing a mask, as if it was a big deal. And I was just like, dude, I'm just saying, we don't know the reasons. We don't know anything about them. Because I really hate the idea of demonizing any group of people. Like, I hate how caught up we get in our politics, where we want to be like Democrat versus Republican, blah, 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 who's right, who's evil. Yeah. And it's just, to me, I can't. And I came to this a lot more recently, in the more recent years, because I was very kind of nasty sometimes online with my own political arguments that I would have. But the reality is, it's like there's people I love on both sides, on many sides of these debates. So the fact that I love these people, the fact that there are people who I care about on multiple sides of these things, I don't get to just write them off as, oh, well, they're an idiot and I'm not their friend anymore, and I'm going to unfriend them on Facebook, as if that does anything. It changes the fact that I'm a blood relative to these people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
No, that doesn't change a thing. We can't just write people off like that. And that's what I'm afraid of. That, to me, is what leads us down the same mistakes that they made back then. Because I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Donald Trump is Hitler, or oh, Joe Biden is Hitler, because these are nonsense arguments. It's just not true. There is not a perfect correlation between any of them. But what could be a better correlation would be the fact that society wanting to demonize one group of people for their problems, because that did happen.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty much exactly what happened. That's why even afterwards, and it was happening before.
Oh yeah,
Germany.
like the
it
Jews.
Wasn't like Germany. The Jews were hated in Russia. Russia was doing a similar thing to the Jews already, and then Germany just intensified it.
Yeah.
So it's not like
all throughout history, the Jews have been hated, really, since almost the beginning of their existence. Throughout all of history, they have been. There's been many points throughout history where they've just been that group that gets blamed for problems and they get persecuted, and it just came to a whole culmination with Nazi Germany. They took advantage of that. They took advantage of.
And this is the scary thing. This is the cutting edge science of the time. The cutting edge science of the time was telling them. Now, granted, we know it's bunk now. We know it's complete bullshit now. But even America was involved in their own eugenics programs. Even America was trying to, not Captain America-esque super soldier, but they were trying to come up with a better type of soldier through breeding, through eugenics, through selectively allowing only certain things in and using chemicals to enhance things. Yeah. So let's not pretend like it was, oh, well, the Germans went off on this horrible bent and this horrible fake science. They had false information. No, they had the cutting edge stuff of the day, and they took it and they ran with it. And we know now that it's bullshit, but it was the science of the day.
Right.
So this is why I get so disturbed when people are like, just trust the science. And that makes no actual scientist is saying that.
Mm-hmm.
The actual scientists are saying, well, right now it looks like it's better for us to take the vaccine for a large portion of us, or at least for those who are most at risk. They should probably take it. Anyone who's been infected, I've heard maybe they shouldn't take it, or maybe they should wait a few months until they take the vaccine because it could complicate things. The fact that you still have the antibodies in your body, because don't tell me there aren't antibodies for COVID. That's not how. That's how it works. That's how like life works. So there's reasonable people out there saying reasonable things, but all we're getting on the news, all we're getting anywhere is this craziness. And I know this video is probably going to get demonetized. It may not even be allowed to be on YouTube, and I don't care because this is what we're actually dealing with. And I mean, yeah, there's a Nazi thing. We're not saying that this is the same thing as Nazis, but I'm just saying, hey, there are a couple slight echoes here that we need to be wary of so that we don't make those same mistakes. We don't demonize a whole group of people, and we don't blindly follow science because science constantly changes. This is also why I hate the Republican side of things, where they're sitting there being like, oh, well, last year the science said masks, and then the science said no masks, and then the science said take the vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask, and then the science says that now you do have to wear a mask and get a third shot. Well, yeah, because science changes as it learns more, as we get more information. That's what happens. But the simple fact that there have been so many changes means that the people who said, you know what, I'm going to wait until this is settled a little bit, that means there was merit to them saying that. There was merit to them going, you know, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait a little bit. I'm a healthy young man. I don't need to get a vaccine right away, and it's only approved for certain things. So I'm just going to wait a little bit to see how this ends up and which ones work best. You know, why do we demonize that? Why?
Yeah. And you see news articles constantly of even some doctors saying I have no sympathy for those who aren't vaccinated and get sick from COVID, and they're saying just get the vaccine basically. And
here's my thing: like, doctors are human,
yes,
and we seem to forget that doctors are motivated the same way the rest of us are. We act as if because they're doctors, there's some magic altruism to their motives and everything. No, these guys are motivated by the same thing everyone else is: money and sex. So this is what these doctors want: money, fame, sex. Stop acting as if they can't be bought.
Yeah.
Okay, stop acting as if they don't have ulterior motives to certain things. We know this because the same people who tell me, oh, if you don't get the vaccine, you're an evil person, are also the ones who bitch about big pharma. So you can't have it both ways. You can't get mad that these doctors are taking money from the big pharma, the developers of these drugs, to peddle their drugs, and then also get mad when people go, hey, I don't know, I'm not so sure about this vaccine. No, I mean, I know there's idiots in both sides. There's people who are just like, I will never get a vaccine no matter what. The same people who were like all for the vaccine before because Trump was promoting it are now the same people who are very anti it because Trump is now against it, even though he's the one who pushed for it to be developed. You know, like this whole thing is like just such flip-flops in the stuff, you know, like it's mind-boggling that anyone can be so solidified in one side of things with the amount of information we have.
Yeah. It's troubling times all over the place. Every especially recently, you know, with the COVID, the whole Afghanistan thing, but we thought with COVID, we thought finally we're getting over this, you know, we're finally getting there. Then the Delta variant shows up and it's a mess. It's a complete mess. And this is going to go on for a long, long time.
This is how sad to say, this is kind of how it's mostly been for my parents' life, for my life, for people older than my parents' life, because the reality is we're just getting more and more information. They thought they were getting so much information when they had newspapers, and now my parents got so much more because they had TV. And now we had the internet, and now forget the internet. The internet has gone on to it's practically not even the same thing that came out in the 90s when I was a kid, because we get information before there's confirmation that it's true now.
Oh yeah, because reporters want the next hot thing for self-gain.
It's not just the reporters, though. It's literally like people on TikTok and people on, YouTube and Instagram and stuff. So it's not just like, if it was just reporters trying to get their edge, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But it's everybody just throwing stuff out there, using their confirmation bias to share their stuff. And then it ends with people getting allegories fact-checked on Facebook. My wife posted an allegory about, it was just a story, just a little story about an eagle with a crow on its back and, how it fights the crow off. And it doesn't worry about the crow because it'll go off because the eagle flies faster and higher. And they fact-checked it because just some little words that the person said in, telling a story about the crow's the only one willing to attack the eagle, but the eagle doesn't worry about it. No, other birds swarm the eagle as well. Crows aren't the only ones who do it. They fact-check that. Well, okay. Granted, it's not factual, but it's not something that matters.
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to fact-check Mary had a little lamb on me? Did she actually have a little lamb?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Was it actually as white as the snow? Did it follow her everywhere she went, though?
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere? I mean,
literally.
Literally. So it's nonsense. And it's so annoying. I hate seeing the fact check thing. I always say, no, it wasn't helpful, and I exit out, whether it was helpful or not, whether it was truthful or not, because I'm sick of those things, and I don't want them there because it doesn't need to be censored. And I don't care what you say about a private organization. When the government's working with you and helping you do that stuff, you're no longer a private organization. When you are the public forum that everyone gets on, you don't get to censor information. It's not the way it works. Just because you're a private company. Sorry, you can't hide behind that. Just because someone privately owned a public building doesn't mean you get, a building that people go to all the time, doesn't mean you get to censor the type of speech that's said there. We have gone way off topic of this movie.
A little
way
bit.
Off topic. But this movie brings up all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that to me that's actually the thing, because you need these freedom of speech rules in order to make a movie like this, because it uses Nazi imagery. It uses jokes that are uncouth to make their point, and the weird thing is the filmmaker made this film and then turns around and doesn't get it, because he turns around and supports censorship and supports silencing minorities, and minorities being the minority of thought, not people of different colors. So it's this weird thing where it's like there's this disconnect where it's how did my wife put it this way? It's like, oh, well, as long as you're letting me do what I want to do, and we can talk about the same people, then yeah, I think you're not a dictator. But the second you start going after me and the people I don't want you to censor, then I'm going to say you're a dictator. Like, dictator no longer actually has meaning, because we throw that word around and say, oh, well. And it's a subjective term. It's just based on how we feel about a person.
Yeah.
So, what are your cons for this movie, since we're running out of time?
Yeah. I mean, let's see here. I'll go to just a little bit here of some of my pros here, because they're so brief. I do love what's his name? Sam Rockwell's character. I can't even pronounce Klesendorf. Is his name?
Names.
Yeah. I love how he spares Jojo's life twice, not once but twice in the movie. And once during the Gestapo scene when they enter his house, and then once at the end. And I just think I love how even though he's serving Nazi Germany, he's also aware, like aware what's happening. So there's the two sides to him, and I like that. I like that about him, about his character, and because, and I didn't even connect this right away, but whenever he comes into Jojo's his house, he brings Rose's bike. So that was after she got hanged, presumably, right? After she got hanged, that he brings in his bike. So he came in basically to check on Jojo, making sure he's okay. And that's when he saw the Gestapo there, and then was able to hide Elsa's true identity to the Gestapo that were there.
No.
And I also just love the humor in that scene with the whole Heil Hitler that I think is said 31 times.
Yes.
I love that
so
humor in that scene. Yeah. And like we said, I love the transition for Jojo's character, how it focuses on childhood innocence, and at the end of the day, it's a coming of age movie, because it focuses on him really starting out as a child, not knowing much, to becoming an adult at the end, and and so I like that aspect of the film as well. And it's also just on the technical side, it's a very sharply directed and edited film. The editing is very snappy. It's very like almost Edgar Wright-esque, I would say, especially in the beginning of the movie. Like there's just some really fast cuts that are just really well placed and really really help you fixate on the movie itself.
Yeah.
And there's also just details in the cinematography, like the fact that we get a lot of shots of Rose's shoes. And we're thinking, why do we get so many shots of her shoes? And it comes into play later when we see her hanging from the gallows. We don't see her face, but we see her shoes, so we can identify her. So like little details like that that are throughout the cinematography, I really like in this movie. The cons, the biggest thing for me in this movie is I don't like Adolf Hitler actually being in the movie. I feel like he's pretty unnecessary, and for me, it's just that the fact that he's one of the most, he was one of the most vile, corrupt human beings to ever walk the face of the earth, and committed genocide against millions of people. And he's mostly used in the film as comic relief. It does kind of shift there towards like the middle to endish, where his persona kind of changes as in correlation with Jojo's character kind of shifting his beliefs and things. So I like where they take it towards the end, but the beginning, I'm not a fan of all the comedy that surrounds Hitler's character. So that was something I didn't really care for. Like I said, I think it would have been fine.
It's just. See, I think I gave it a pass because it's just his imaginary friend Hitler. It's not.
It is his imaginary.
It's the real Hitler. If they were having actual Hitler in the film being like that, then I think I would definitely have a problem with it, but it's literally this kid's imaginary friend, Hitler, because he has no friends, but he's committing himself to his cause. So this is what Hitler would be like in his imagination. It kind of also shows to me the ridiculousness. It's like serves the point I was saying earlier, where it's showing the ridiculousness of the beliefs and the views. But
yeah, and there's just some other spots where the humor just. It goes like I'm someone who like loves dark humor. Like I love the irreverent humor type, as we discussed, kind of even like Dumb and Dumber and some of the other movies we've discussed this season. Like I love dark humor generally. This film in certain spots takes it just a bit too far for me. I'm thinking of Rebel Wilson when she takes a grenade and puts it on a child and says, "Now go hug it. Now go hug someone that's American," and sends them off. And I. Just like I'm not gonna deny that I laughed at that, but then I felt bad for laughing at it. That's a bit too far for me. It's a step too far, I think. But yeah.
I like the fact that she talks about like having, I've already had 14 kids for Hitler, or something like that. She says it's just like such nonsense.
Yeah, and overall, like I know this is it's a satire. It's meant to criticize, mock, and condemn the Nazi regime, and but like the Holocaust is still something like 80 years later. And like you said, it is nice that they don't focus on the whole Holocaust aspect. It's more of what's actually happening in Germany at that time. Those events are actually taking place. But
I think if they showed a concentration camp with people running around smiling or something, then that would be.
Yeah.
I would have said that was too far. I would probably be on their side with that, but they kind of just avoided that whole side of it. And I mean, to me, it's to their credit because it has been covered. It's not like they're avoiding it because they don't believe it. They're avoiding it because it doesn't fit the satirical nature of what they're trying to do.
Right. And I do appreciate something through the trivia I read that Waititi wanted to kind of showcase the vibrancy that was Germany during this time, because in many of these war films we get like you said, we get the ugly side of it, and we don't actually see what it was like for German citizens on the inside. And in this movie, it's very colorful, it's very vibrant cinematography, it's very brightly lit scenes, and so we get to see that other glossy side that very much contrasts what we know is actually happening on the outside. And so I love that contrast throughout this movie. That
it's big.
Life seems to be perfect on the inside, and obviously by the end of the film, that all fades away and collapses on itself. But and that's nothing I just kind of want to bring up real quick. This is something I've always struggled with. What is your opinion on this? For the German citizens themselves, when these events were going on, how much do you think they knew what was actually going on as far as the Holocaust goes and what was happening to the Jews when they were? Because when the Holocaust and the concentration camps were going on, they were having parties, they were having normal everyday life, and they were the happiest that they've ever been. Like I've watched a lot of documentaries on this where they were just living the easy life and thinking everything was perfectly fine. And when the war was over, then they saw the atrocities that were actually happening. Do you actually think they were completely ignorant of what was going on? Because I have a hard time believing that.
I don't. And the reason I don't is because of how close they were physically to some of these concentration camps.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, how many of their normal men were dealing with the stress of this. Like, I feel like it was a willful blindness to it, because we have a similar thing that happens now where we want to be willfully blind to certain things. So there are people who act as if there aren't atrocities going on around the world, and look, I understand, because if you actually can't do anything about it, then it can just lead you down a really dark, depressing path to dwell on it. So I understand not dwelling on it, but there's a difference between not dwelling on it and pretending it's not happening. Like, yeah, I've been pissed for the past 2 days because of what's been going on with the Afghanistan stuff. I can voice my opinion. I can send an email or call to my senator, which I have done stuff like that before. But at the end of the day, I really can't do that much about it. It's not like I can go jump in a plane and fly over there and do anything. I'm not physically fit enough to do that, But I don't think we should say nothing or act as if it's not happening.
Right.
And I certainly don't think we should enjoy the spoils of some of these things. I'm still pissed at Disney with Mulan and the fact that they were filming right next door to where the Uyghurs are being held captive in a literal modern day concentration camp. It's in the background of the damn film. It's there.
I haven't even watched that movie.
And I did, because someone told me to check it out and how great it was. And I wish I could have enjoyed it, but I couldn't. The entire movie, I was just pissed because I knew that it was filmed in China, the consolations that they had made to be allowed to film there, and how much we are giving away. And I've voiced my opinion on China on this channel before. I don't think we should be pursuing them as a market until they're free. It really bugs me that there were protests fighting for freedom before all this COVID stuff happens. And then I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. But there's just some questions I have. What happened to all the protesters? Why did they stop protesting? Just because of COVID? Too much of a coincidence for me. And also, freedom is too high of a price to pay to just give up on that. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't. It's not right. Like, we need to support the countries that want to fight for themselves. That's what France did for the U.S. back during our revolution when we were breaking away from the empire that we needed to get away from.
Yeah.
We support the people who can fight for themselves. Now, the problem with Afghanistan is we went in there and fought without them asking us to help them fight. They weren't ready to fight. And then we try and set up an army there, and they're not able to hold it down because they didn't fight for it. They didn't earn it. They didn't want it.
Yeah.
They want it now, but they're not willing to fight for it. And so it's just, or they're not able to. So it's this weird thing where it's like, look, it's not easy to be free. It's not easy to take down tyrants and have these terrible, brutal regimes taken down. But if your country can't be against them, then I don't know. I really don't know the answer. I'm not saying just give up and die, but I'm saying, like, you can't, as much as we can't be just bailing everybody out, as much as we can't fight the war without them wanting it, I also just don't feel like we can just abandon it the way we have. That's what I think is the fact that we were there, we were holding it steady, and then we left it.
We were like the one thing that was actually holding them back, and then the second we start evacuating, they take advantage of it.
It was
instant, and they have it. Yeah, you could see it coming. People, you knew it was coming.
The man's been in office for 7 months, and he has undone so many things. When he got elected, gas was $1.99. And now I found, oh, wow, $3.17. That's actually a good price.
And
it's not just gas prices. It's not just about that. But it's about the way that it impacts all of our lives, you know? And so there's these minor things, gas prices, and then people actually dying over here for this man's decisions.
Yeah.
Because he wants to do what no other president has done. It's Jimmy Carterism all over again. You want to be known for something, so you do something big, and then you end up getting known as the biggest idiot that's ever held the office.
Yeah, I can't even say how many times he said, "I will not make the same mistakes the presidents before me did. I will not make the same mistakes they did."
No,
and so instead he's going to make a much worse one by just ditching, leaving, and letting thousands of people get slaughtered.
See, not that America cares about international law, and not that I know international law, but I remember a friend of mine who does telling me that we didn't pull out of those countries for so long because we legally couldn't. Because per like UN and NATO and certain laws, maybe not NATO, maybe I'm thinking something else. I forget what it is. But if you dethrone a government, basically overthrow a sovereign nation, then you need to either set up your own thing there or set them back up before you can pull out. Yeah. Which is why we were there for so long, because it wasn't legal by international law, supposedly. Don't quote me on this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it was explained to me, is the fact that we can't just pull out, because if we do, things will just get worse for them, and we need to make sure that we're leaving them in good hands. And
in a stable situation, which they very clearly were not at all.
I mean, not that America cares about a lot of these laws, we thumb our nose at them all the time. Like we sign certain accords with the UN, and then we just thumb our nose at them. Whether it's pollution or advancement or capitalism and here's the thing: I'm not against capitalism, and there are certain amounts of pollution and stuff that are necessary for life to go on. So I just think that we keep trying to advance things to a point without letting people grow on their own. It's like trying to take a child and letting them grow to a point and making them an adult right away. It's going to have disastrous effects. We need to let places go through their own stages of growth, let them develop themselves, and help them out where they need it. I'm so frustrated. I probably sound like I'm all over the board, but I really feel like, to me, it's do one or the other. Either have a hands-off approach and understand that a bunch of people are going to die because of it, or have a hands-on approach and understand that some people will probably die because of it. Yeah. Like, that is life. Mm-hmm. It's trade-offs. We don't get to have a perfect solution. I'd rather do something
than nothing.
Have things go wrong than nothing and have things go terrible.
Yeah. Because at least then you're doing some good, Mm-hmm. At least you're doing some good.
At least then you can have some say in what goes on over there.
Yeah. And now you've got nothing. And they, I'm not going to just repeat what's been said, but yeah. Anyway,
them drones. They have. Oh my gosh.
They have some of the worst vile people on the planet now have access to high tech weaponry. How does that feel, America? How does that make us feel? So how about some trivia? Brighten things up here.
Worst movie review ever. This is gonna have to go on the list of stuff we redo and do better justice to.
Yeah.
In whatever season we said we were doing that in. I have it all written down somewhere. I just
one little cool bit of trivia I liked in this movie: when Jojo tries to stab Elsa with the knife, the bedroom wallpaper behind her gives her the appearance of wings and horns, which matches, Jojo's cartoonish conception of Jews. I didn't actually notice that when I watched it, but I was like, that's pretty cool.
I didn't either. I'm going to have to go back and see that.
Lines. And then, of course, he walks away, and then he walks away from them to comfort Jojo, or she walks away from them to comfort Jojo, and that's the moment that kind of destroys that conception. So, other little thing, let's see here. The whole thing with Jojo, his ability to tie his shoes. So in the beginning, he can't, obviously, right? And there's a thing here where it could actually represent his disenchantment with the Nazi party and how that progresses throughout the movie. Because at the beginning, he can't tie them, and then his mom is always tying them for him, as she always tries to dissuade him from being involved in the Nazi party. And then when he finds her body, he tries to tie her shoes, but because of his grief, he's not able to manage it. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the war, as he and Elsa are about to leave the house, he is able to tie her shoe. And this kind of is a way of showcasing, and another way of showcasing his departure from his ideals in the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, and that's that shift that happens. And the reason why, so Taika Waititi is who betrays, he betrays not Hitler in this movie. And when asked why he chose to play the role of Adolf Hitler, he said, quote, "The answer's simple. What better fuck you to the guy?" ? That was his response to it. So, and as far as the message of the film, he noted saying, quote, "We need to be more tolerant and spread more love and less hate." And that's what he tried to communicate in the movie. So, the one thing I also kind of I've noticed this movie is very similar. It's kind of predictable in many ways because it's similar to other movies, like whether it's A Boy in Striped Pajamas, even though that movie ends a lot more pessimistically and heartbreaking than this movie. That movie leaves a hole in your heart, let me tell you.
Same thing with Life is Beautiful.
I was going to mention Life is Beautiful is a big one where the plots are fairly similar in that regard too. So this movie, without even seeing it, like I was like, this is kind of predictable where this is going to head. He's going to befriend a Jew, and then he's going to shift his perspective once he finds out who they actually really are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of what I had here for Jojo Rabbit.
I just like the fact that they actually committed to like scaring the crap out of you towards the end there. You didn't know if Jojo was going to die or not. Like, this movie was that unpredictable that you were literally like sitting there going, I was sweating bullets when he's sitting next to Sam Rockwell and like, oh my God, they're going to kill him with all the other Nazis because he's all about it. And I mean, and then of course, what's his little friend's name again?
I forget.
Yorkie.
I do like him though.
Yorkie. Yorkie. I just love how, he's always doing something crazy, always out there. Oh, hey, Jojo, what you doing? I've been doing this. And then suddenly at the very end, he's just there without the Nazi uniform anymore. But man, that's pretty messed up. That was kind of, that's some crazy stuff that we were getting involved in there, don't you think?
Yep.
It was like, perfect. That was perfect ending for Yorkie. I loved it.
Yeah. Is it him who also like drops? He accidentally fires the gun, whichever type of gun he's holding, and it like destroys. Yes, I thought so. Yeah, he's a pretty funny character. So that is Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit, and like I said, we're gonna end up redoing this movie because we're both kind of angry.
Yeah, yeah, we're a little bit on edge, frustrated, pissed off, all the above. Which, I don't know how you can't be. Let's see.
I was ignorant. I was literally like I didn't know what was going on until I think Tuesday, when my friend sent me a joke about something. He sent me a Babylon Bee article where they had a woman in a burqa from CNN saying, the Nazis are saying Hitler and stuff like that, but they all seem kind of nice to me. I had no idea what he was referencing there. I had no idea what the article was referencing because it's a satirical site. They make fun of everything. And then I found the real thing in CNN talking about Taliban as, they're all saying death to America, but I can't believe there's an actual quote and just forward.
Yeah.
Speaking of historical events, next week we're doing Forrest Gump. Which, 1994's Best Picture winner, Forrest Gump, which won Best Picture over Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Some people have a big problem with that. I don't. But we will be reviewing Forrest Gump. I know Julie Palmer really loves Forrest Gump. I can see you kind of weighing the Pulp Fiction Forrest Gump Oscar win there. Do you think it was deserved, or do you think it should have gone the other way? That's something we'll cover next week, because I'm actually wondering what else went up against it now.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't tell you without looking it up. So, we hope you join us next week. Thanks for putting up with us this week. Like we said, we'll probably be redoing this here at some point, Jojo Rabbit, because it deserves, I think, a more in-depth review. But so many disturbing atrocities, current events happening right now, and we just want to kind of get into that a little bit, or a lot of it here. So thank you again for listening to us, and we will see you next week. Stay cool.
Thanks for watching this episode of Buddy Movies. If you like what you saw, click here for more episodes. And remember to like, share, and subscribe for all of our latest content. If you really like what we do, consider supporting us on patreon.com/buddymovies. Thanks for watching, and remember to stay cool.